Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we have a chilling story for you, one that blurs the lines between a haunted house and a haunted heart. It is a tale that asks a terrifying question. What if the ghosts we fear most are the ones we bring with us? Our story begins with the Harringtons, David, Emily, and their two children, Sophie and Max. They'd always dreamt of escaping the city, and when David inherited a sprawling Gilded Age mansion in upstate New York, it felt like a dream come true. The house was a masterpiece of old-world opulence. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and rooms that smelled of aged wood and history. For Emily, a writer struggling with her marriage, it was a chance for a fresh start. For the kids, it was an adventure, a castle to call their own. They moved in during the fall, and the first few weeks were a blissful whirlwind of unpacking and exploring. The house was isolated, surrounded by miles of dense, whispering woods. The silence at night was absolute, a perfect canvas for a new life. David, recently unemployed, threw himself into renovations, while Emily hoped the peaceful setting would cure her writer's block. The children, Sophie and Max, spent their days playing among the overgrown gardens. But true peace, as they would soon discover, was the one thing this house wouldn't offer. The strangeness started small. In the kitchen, an open fridge door, a carton of milk spilled on the floor. Emily blamed 7-year-old Max, but he swore he didn't do it. Then, a cooked chicken breast vanished from the counter, leaving behind faint, parallel scratches on the granite, like tiny claws. David dismissed it as mice, but Emily couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The incidents grew more bizarre. Cans of tuna disappeared from the pantry, their lids peeled back with an unnatural precision. The contents licked clean. A faint, musky odor, like wet fur, began to linger in the air. 10-year-old Sophie was the first to give the presence a voice. "I heard purring last night," she whispered to her mom, "like a cat, but really soft, from under my bed." Emily checked but found nothing. "It's just the old house settling, sweetie," she reassured her. But Sophie's gaze lingered on the empty space under the bed. Soon, Max started leaving saucers of milk by his bedroom door. "For the kitty," he'd say, even though he'd never seen one. David laughed it off as childish imagination, but the seed of dread had been planted in Emily's mind. Her research into the mansion's history revealed a mysterious past. The original owners, the Whitfields, had vanished in the early 1900s after a scandalous divorce. The records were sparse, leaving more questions than answers. As the days grew shorter, the disturbances became a part of their daily life, slowly chipping away at their already fragile family dynamic. David grew irritable and sleepless, waking Emily with whispers about scratching in the walls, only to deny it in the morning. Emily felt a chasm opening between them, a silence colder than the autumn air. One afternoon, while exploring the dusty attic, Sophie found a leather-bound journal. It was dated 1923 and belonged to Mrs. Whitfield. The entries were all about her beloved Persian cat, Minerva. The journal described a beautiful creature with eyes like polished amber. Mrs. Whitfield wrote how Minerva seemed to absorb her husband's anger, curling in her lap during arguments, her purring a soothing balm against his rages. But the tone of the journal darkened. Accusations of infidelity, of jealousy turning venomous. The final entry sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "He buried her in the garden today. Said it was mercy, but I know it was spite. Now the house feels heavier, like she's still here, watching. Emily tried to rationalize it, to call it a coincidence. But that night, she heard it herself. A low, rhythmic purring from the hallway. She followed the sound to the children's room. Max was on the floor, giggling, his hand making slow, petting motions over empty air. "She's playing," he said happily. Sophie watched from her bed, her face pale. "She tells us things, Mom," Sophie said, "about you and Dad." Emily's blood ran cold. "What things?" Max tilted his head as if listening to a whisper. "That Dad talks to a lady on the phone late at night, and that you cry in the bathroom when you think we're asleep." The words were too specific, too adult for a child's game. That night, Emily confronted David. He denied it at first, but the truth eventually tumbled out. An emotional affair with a former colleague. He swore it was over, but the damage was done. The house seemed to feed on their turmoil. The musky scent grew stronger, and deep scratches appeared on the doors. Emily started finding soft gray tufts of fur on her clothes. The children were changing too. Sophie endlessly drew pictures of a cat with knowing, sorrowful eyes. Max began hoarding food under his bed, whispering that it was for Minerva. One stormy night, Emily awoke to a heavy weight on her chest, warm and alive. She gasped, swatting at nothing, but the pressure remained, accompanied by a faint, purring rumble that seemed to echo her own guilt and resentment. The next morning she found tiny, red puncture marks on her skin, like the playful bites. Desperate, David dug in the garden, where the journal said Minerva was buried. He unearthed a small, rotted box. Inside were the fragile bones of a cat and a tarnished collar, with the name Minerva engraved on it. But this discovery brought no peace. It was as if unearthing the bones had unleashed something far worse. That evening, the family huddled in the living room, the air thick with fear. "We have to leave," Emily said, her voice shaking, but Sophie, her eyes distant, replied, "She doesn't want us to. She says we're just like them. The fighting, the secrets." She stayed to hold it all in, but now it's spilling out. And in that terrifying moment, Emily saw it. A flicker in the corner of the room, a translucent shape coalescing from the shadows. A sleek, ethereal cat with eyes that glowed with a borrowed sadness. It didn't attack. It just watched, its presence a perfect mirror of their family's decay. David lunged at the form, shouting, but his hand passed right through it. He collapsed, sobbing, admitting to deeper betrayals, more lies. The children clung to each other, apologizing for arguments they'd overheard and should never have known. The ghost of Minerva wasn't a spirit of vengeance. It was a vessel. It was absorbing and amplifying the poison that the Harringtons had brought into the house with them. It was forcing them to face the horrors they had created themselves. They didn't leave. They couldn't. They were trapped not by a ghost, but by their own shared misery, bound together in a house that purred with the sound of their inevitable downfall. The story of the Harringtons is a haunting reminder that sometimes the most terrifying place isn't a haunted house, but a broken home. What do you think? Was the cat a malevolent spirit, or simply a mirror reflecting the family's own darkness? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales. We'll see you next time.